Old rivalries and new challenges alike start to rekindle in the hearts and minds of players and spectators as puck drop approaches. Here's 5 dates for you to mark on your calendar if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan. The Habs have improved in the front office, on the bench, and obviously on the ice, but competing with the NHL's Atlantic Division won't be easy. In this video, we're going to go over it all. Before we start spilling the dates, here's how the teams look in this season. It goes without saying that the majority of Montreal Canadiens fans will wish to forget the previous season, but with the league's worst record, there's just one way to go but up, and the Habs might be rising more quickly than most of us anticipated. Montreal has entered a new age since reaching its lowest point. The wave of change first began with significant changes in the front office before spreading to the bench and the ice. The Canadiens are a brand new team right now after making a number of summer additions, winning the draft lottery, and trading significant assets at the deadline. There are no frontrunners yet, but things are looking far brighter now than they did a few months ago. There is a lot of youth, talent, and depth up front on the roster. The back end, however, cannot be considered to be the same. So if an offensive piece is traded for a defensive asset, don't be shocked. We now know that Kent Hughes is not afraid to take risks. Enough of that now, yeah? Now on to the dates you need to mark. First up, on October 12th, the Montreal Canadiens will play Toronto Maple Leafs. The Montreal Canadiens will face their storied rival Toronto Maple Leafs to kick off their season at home this year. Both teams have a reputation for going all out straight away, and even after a protracted winter vacation. And their shared 7-game playoff series in the first round of 2021 has only added to the historic history between the two teams. It's important to get the season off to a winning start, and losing against the Maple Leafs hurts even more. In October, expect playoff-style hockey. Before we move on, let's talk a bit about the rivalry. The Canadiens and Maple Leafs were the only Canadian-based teams in the NHL until 1970, as a result of the rivalry that developed between the two teams when the Montreal Maroons folded in 1938. During the original Six era, both clubs enjoyed success, with the Stanley Cup typically going to one of the Canadiens or Maple Leafs. The Canadiens and Maple Leafs served as a stand-in for various cultural dualities in Canada's society, most notably with the Canadiens representing French-speaking Canada and the Maple Leafs the English-speaking part of the country. In addition to the on-ice competition, societal issues in Canada in the middle of the 20th century further fueled the rivalry. The rivalry's relationship with greater cultural challenges in the country has left a mark on Canadian culture, most notably through the publishing of Rock Carrier's short tale, The Hockey Sweater. There have been 16 Stanley Cup playoffs encountering between the Canadiens and Maple Leafs, including 5 Stanley Cup finals. Since the original Six era, the rivalry between the two teams has diminished. From 1981 to 1998, the Canadiens and Maple Leafs competed in different NHL conferences, and from 1980 to 2020, the two teams did not face off in the playoffs. Even if the rivalry is no longer driven by its historical connotations, Toronto and Montreal's relationship with one another continues to serve as a national emblem. Next, Seattle Kraken on December 6th, a Thursday to remember. The consensus was that the Canadiens would choose Shane Wright with the first overall pick. Things for the great centerman of the Kingston Frontenacs only got worse when they didn't sign him, as the Arizona Coyotes and the New Jersey Devils both passed on him. Even though the Seattle Kraken ultimately chose him with the 4th overall pick, the 18-year-old's disappointment was practically tangible. Wright's parting words to the media were, "I'm definitely going to have a chip on my shoulder from this, undoubtedly a bit more drive. I've always been driven by myself. Although I've always pushed myself internally, this will undoubtedly offer me a bit more motivation." If everything falls into place, Wright will play against the squad that passed on him for the first time this December and bring that passion. Moving on to the Colorado Avalanche game on Wednesday, December 21st. When the Canadiens travel to Colorado to compete against the defending Stanley Cup champions, they'll be put to the test. The playoff hero Artturi Lehkonen, who joined the Avalanche last year, will also be there to meet them. Montreal will prove to the skeptics that they have both character and chemistry if they can compete with the league's finest club. If they give in to the pressure, they'll be up against the offensive powerhouses for a long night in their own zone. A side note, if the Avalanche decides to wear the historic Quebec Nordics uniforms, this game will be far more amusing. Up next, Boston Bruins on Thursday, January 24th. The Canadiens-Bruins rivalry rarely disappoints, regardless of where the teams are currently placing in the standings. It's not just one of the best in hockey, it's also one of the most passionate in all of the sports, even if it has subsided recently. When these two teams are involved, things frequently become heated. When these vengeful rivals collide for the first time in the new year, expect the penalty boxes to be packed. Lastly, 16th of February, Thursday, the Carolina Hurricanes. Famous forwards Max Pacioretty and Jesperi Kotkaniemi both left the Canadiens on bad terms. Both of them are currently playing for the Carolina Hurricanes, a group that occasionally trolls the Montreal Canadiens on Twitter. The two Eastern Conference teams will meet in February, giving Montreal a chance to settle the score, at least on the ice. Now on to other news. First off, Slafkovsky shows promise early in training camp. In his first ever scrimmage at an NHL training camp, the first overall pick should stick out, but you shouldn't necessarily expect him to be the greatest player on the ice. Yuri Slafkovsky was without a doubt the greatest player on the ice. With the proviso that it was not only a scrimmage, performance and that not every opponent he faced on Friday will play in the NHL this year. On every shift, he stood out, giving a peek of the many abilities that led to the Montreal Canadiens choosing him above Shane Wright and everyone else in July. Let's start with the strength of the 6'4", 238-pound winger. Slafkovsky engaged Joel Armia in a loose puck duel during one of his first shifts while skating on the right wing of a line with Owen Beck at the center and Raphael Harvey-Pinard on the left. Slafkovsky deflected Armia's stick check with one hand on his stick, as if swatting a fly. Impressive! Moving on, the Canadiens' job offer stunned Jeff Gorton. Surprisingly, on May 5, 2021, 2 days after the Rangers were eliminated from playoff contention with a 6-3 loss to Washington Capitals that brought their record to 26-21-6 in the COVID-shortened season, team owner James Dolan made the shocking decision to fire Gorton and team president John Davidson. With 8 rookies starting for the Rangers, their roster was the youngest in the NHL at the time, and that he was taken aback when he originally received a call from him about perhaps joining the Canadiens. Gorton responded by saying when you think of the Montreal Canadiens, you likely recall the original 6 once more, and a Canadian team in a region where the majority language is French. You're not sure when that will present itself a chance for you, so to speak. So sure, he was both honored and shocked when he received the call from Jeff. Lastly, Gallagher is healthy, but new injuries are reported in the Canadiens' notebook. The first overall pick in the 2022 NHL Draft would have made for a layup of a major story on day 1 of his training camp with the Montreal Canadiens. Instead, soon after the media arrived at the team's South Shore practice facility, we learned that 4 of the most reliable players set to attend camp had been injured, and Slafkovsky was demoted to the rank of an afterthought. The news stunned everyone in the room, as none of these players had been classified as injured before turning in for Wednesday's physicals. Then the fan base reacted hysterically on social media. First, it was announced that newly appointed Canadiens captain Nick Suzuki would be sidelined for 2 weeks due to a lower body injury. Additionally, due to upper body injuries, Josh Anderson and Jake Evans were both listed as day-to-day. The biggest surprise came next when Joel Edmondson's lower body injury was described as keeping him out indefinitely. Due to a back issue that was initially diagnosed as a lower body injury, he missed the entirety of training camp last year and was only able to play in 24 games. Canadiens coach Martin St. Louis was unable to tell on Thursday whether or not the injury he is currently dealing with is linked. That's a wrap for this video. Are you excited about the upcoming matches? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.